Have you ever met someone who seems confident, almost radiant on the outside, but deep down, you sense something fragile, something quietly aching inside? We often think of narcissism as arrogance, vanity, or self-obsession, the loud, grand kind that demands attention and admiration. But beneath that surface, there's another form of narcissism that hides in plain sight, one that doesn't look powerful at all. It's called deficit narcissism. Unlike the grandiose kind, deficit narcissism is built not on an excess of self-love, but on a painful lack of it. It's the silent counterpart, a narcissism born not from too much ego, but from a deep wound in the self. People who struggle with this kind of inner emptiness often appear kind, giving, or even selfless. But inside, they might feel invisible, unseen, or unworthy of love. In this video, I want to explore what deficit narcissism really is, how it forms, how it hides, and how it can quietly shape our relationships, our identity, and even our search for love. Because to understand this hidden side of narcissism, we need to look not at the mask of confidence, but at the emptiness that lies behind it. When most people hear the word narcissist, they picture someone loud, proud, and self-centered, someone who demands to be the center of attention. But deficit narcissism is very different. It's quieter, more fragile, and often misunderstood. At its core, deficit narcissism isn't about loving yourself too much. It's about not having enough of yourself to hold on to. It's a sense of emotional emptiness, a missing center that leaves a person constantly searching for something or someone to fill it. The term comes from psychoanalytic thinkers like Heinz Kohut and Otto Kernberg. Kohut believed that narcissism isn't inherently bad. In fact, it's a natural part of human development. As children, we need to feel admired, seen, and mirrored by our caregivers. When that mirroring doesn't happen enough, something inside us doesn't fully form, a stable sense of self. The result is what Kohut called a deficit in the self. The person grows up feeling that their worth depends on external validation, praise, success, attention, or affection. Without it, they might feel invisible or empty. So while grandiose narcissism tries to maintain power and superiority, deficit narcissism tries to avoid collapse. It's like building your identity out of fragile glass, beautiful when it catches the light, but easily shattered when the reflection fades. Many people with deficit narcissism don't appear arrogant at all. In fact, they might seem humble, even insecure. They often try to please others, to be perfect, or to give endlessly, hoping that if they give enough, they'll finally feel worthy. But deep down, they're not giving from fullness. They're giving from a wound, a quiet hope that being needed or loved will finally make them feel real. And that's what makes deficit narcissism so difficult to recognize. It hides not behind pride, but behind kindness. Every story of deficit narcissism begins long before adulthood, in the quiet moments of childhood. Imagine a little boy or girl who looks up to their parent, hoping to see warmth and pride reflected back. But instead, what they find is something missing. Maybe the parent is distracted, critical, or emotionally cold. Maybe they're loving only when the child performs well, gets good grades, behaves perfectly, or makes them proud. Over time, that child learns an invisible rule. I am worthy only when I please others. Their emotional needs, to be accepted just for being, not for doing, slowly fade into the background. In some cases, the parent might have been narcissistic themselves, seeing the child not as a person but as an extension of their own ego, a little mirror to reflect their success. And so, the child becomes that mirror. They smile when they don't feel like smiling. They hide their sadness to avoid rejection. They become who others need them to be, losing touch with who they truly are. The result is what psychologists call a false self. It's the version of us that performs well in the world, competent, kind, adaptive, but it's disconnected from the inner truth. And underneath that false self lies an ache, a small voice that keeps whispering, "Do you see me? Am I enough? Would you love me if I stopped trying so hard?" For many adults, these questions never fully disappear. They just change form, appearing in careers, relationships, and friendships. The same hunger for recognition continues, but now it's hidden behind adult responsibilities and achievements. What started as a child's longing to be seen becomes an adult's silent addiction to approval. For someone living with deficit narcissism, the world often feels like a place where love must be earned, every single day. No matter how much they achieve or how kind they are, there's a quiet voice inside whispering, "It's not enough. You're still not enough." This is the inner void, an emptiness that no compliment, no success, no relationship seems to fill. It's not the kind of emptiness that comes from loneliness. It's deeper, quieter, almost existential. It's the absence of an inner sense of being real. People with this kind of wound often describe feeling hollow after moments that should bring joy. They might finish a project, receive praise, or even fall in love, only to feel the joy fade within hours, replaced by a strange numbness. And beneath that numbness lives shame. Shame is the hidden core of deficit narcissism, the belief that there's something fundamentally wrong or unlovable inside, that if people saw the real self, they would turn away. To protect themselves, many develop what looks like confidence or control. They appear strong, capable, even generous, because being needed feels safer than being vulnerable. But this protection comes at a cost. The more they perform strength, the less they feel safe to be soft. The more they try to appear whole, the emptier they feel inside. And so, the cycle continues. They seek validation to feel complete, but every bit of praise only feeds the illusion, never the wound. Healing begins when they dare to stop performing, when they risk showing their true, imperfect self and discover that love doesn't disappear, because only then does the void begin to fill, not with admiration, but with authenticity. Relationships are where deficit narcissism quietly reveals itself the most. On the surface, people who carry this wound can seem deeply caring, even devoted. They listen, they give, they try to make others feel valued. But underneath that kindness often hides a silent hope. Maybe if I love enough, I'll finally be loved back. At first, relationships may feel intense and magical. They idealize their partner, seeing them as the missing piece, the person who will finally make them feel whole. But over time, something shifts. When the partner fails to provide constant reassurance, the fragile self starts to panic. Small disappointments feel like rejection. A moment of distance feels like abandonment. That fear often turns into anger, withdrawal, or coldness. They may unconsciously start to devalue the very person they once adored, not out of cruelty but out of protection, because being hurt again feels unbearable. This cycle, idealization and devaluation, isn't about manipulation. It's about survival. It's the desperate attempt to keep connection without facing the shame of feeling not enough. Some people cope by becoming overgivers, losing themselves completely in another person's needs. Others become avoidant, keeping distance to prevent rejection. Both are two sides of the same wound. If I show my real self, you'll leave. The tragedy is that they crave deep intimacy, but fear it at the same time. They want to be seen, but the idea of being truly known feels terrifying. So they live in a constant push and pull, longing for closeness, then pulling away when it finally arrives. And without realizing it, they end up repeating the same emotional script that began in childhood, trying to earn love from people who can't fully give it. Healing from deficit narcissism isn't about suddenly becoming confident or perfect. It's not about flipping a switch and suddenly loving yourself unconditionally. It begins with awareness, noticing the patterns, the inner voice that constantly says, "I'm not enough," and gently observing it without judgment. Therapy can be a powerful tool here. Working with a compassionate therapist allows someone to explore the early wounds, to see how childhood experiences shaped their false self, and to begin practicing self-compassion. One key step is learning to tolerate vulnerability. This means allowing yourself to be seen as you truly are, imperfect, messy, and sometimes fragile, without immediately trying to fix or hide yourself. Another important part is developing an internal sense of worth that doesn't depend entirely on external validation. This can be small things at first. Acknowledging a personal accomplishment, enjoying a quiet moment alone, or setting a boundary without guilt. Mindfulness and reflective practices can also help. They teach you to notice your emotions without being swept away by them, to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Slowly, over time, the hollow feeling inside begins to fill, not with praise from others, but with acceptance from within. The self becomes more resilient, more present, more authentic. And the beautiful paradox is this: the more you allow yourself to be real, the more genuine connections you attract. When you stop performing for love, you begin to experience it naturally, from people who truly see and accept you. Healing doesn't erase the past, and it doesn't make the wound disappear completely, but it transforms it from a source of fear and shame into a quiet reminder of resilience, empathy, and the capacity to grow. Deficit narcissism is a hidden struggle, quiet, subtle, and often misunderstood. It reminds us that not all wounds are visible. Some people may seem confident, kind, or successful, yet carry an emptiness that shapes every thought, every choice, every relationship. Understanding this form of narcissism teaches us empathy, for ourselves and for others. It shows us that behind behaviors we might find confusing or frustrating, there is often a deep human longing, the desire to be seen, to be understood, to be enough. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, remember, awareness is the first step toward healing. If you recognize them in someone else, compassion is the bridge that can help both of you feel less alone. Life is not about hiding the emptiness or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about learning to live with it, to nurture it, and to slowly, gently fill it with authenticity, self-compassion, and connection. So the next time you meet someone who seems fragile behind their kindness, or notice a quiet ache within yourself, pause, observe, and remember, the hidden wound doesn't define you. How you respond, how you nurture your inner self, and how you allow love and understanding to flow, that is what truly matters. Because even in the quietest, most hidden places inside us, healing is always possible.